If you clicked on this video, you are probably curious about what common phrase could manipulate reviewers. You might be wondering if you already know this phrase, or you might wonder if you are using it in your own writing. And you might be thinking that if authors use the phrase so often, how could it possibly erode credibility? The phrase that I'm referring to has two parts that can each subtly erode your reviewer's confidence in your work and you. And when these two parts are combined, they can be perceived as manipulation that erodes your credibility. Now, I've had several debates with people about my thoughts on this phrase, so I'm going to walk you through my thinking. And I'm going to show you a better way to build a more convincing argument that avoids this phrase and persuades reviewers. And if we haven't met, hello, my name is Crystal. I'm a trained biomedical scientist turned clinical researcher and now scientific and medical editor. Since 2011, I've collaborated with researchers to help them publish in high-impact journals and secure federal and foundation funding. And I've trained thousands of researchers and other professional writers all over the world to equip them with the principles, resources, and systems they need to write well. And since 2021, I've been running my signature course, Scientific Writing Simplified, which is part of the Redwood Ink Academy, where hundreds of researchers and professional writers have taken our courses to hone their writing skills with lots of amazing success stories. If you'd like to check out the Academy, there's more details in the video description. Okay, let's get to it. What are the two parts of this phrase that, when combined, could be perceived as manipulation? The first part of the phrase is "to our knowledge." This phrase is not convincing. Now, you might be really surprised by this one, and you might disagree with me, but hear me out. The phrase "to our knowledge" implies that other people may know certain information, but you may not be aware of it. So by using "to our knowledge," you may cast doubt in your reviewers' minds about whether you really know the literature or your field. And what's worse is that this phrase suggests that you do not want to be held accountable if that information becomes known. This lack of accountability can damage your reputation and tarnish the credibility of the work and you. Now, the good news is that there are great alternatives to this phrase. One way is to only share known information. For example, avoid phrases like the following: "To our knowledge, researchers have not uncovered how the drug reduces cell proliferation of lung cancer cells." This phrasing suggests that you are not 100% certain that researchers have not uncovered how the drug reduces cell proliferation of lung cancer cells. And this uncertainty can cast doubt in your reviewer's mind. Instead, describe more specific details about what is and is not known, such as in the following: "Although we do not fully understand how the drug reduces cell proliferation in lung cancer, researchers have linked the drug to cell mitosis in other cancer cells." This phrasing acknowledges the gap in knowledge, or what is not known, and states what is known with certainty, especially when the second part of that sentence is followed by a supporting citation. Now, another option, if you really want to use the phrase "to our knowledge," is to back up your claim. You can share information about the database or databases you searched, what search terms you used, and the date you ran the search. That way, you show that you did your due diligence and that you are willing to be held accountable for the quality of your search. And if you're worried about space when faced with a length limit, such as in a manuscript, you can include that description in the supplementary materials. Okay, so the first part of the phrase to avoid is "to our knowledge." What is the second part? The second part of the phrase that can erode your credibility is "first to show." This phrase on its own may seem convincing. You might think that this phrase highlights the novelty or significance of the work and therefore is persuasive. But using first to show suggests that you know everything in the field, published or unpublished. And this is difficult to guarantee. Have you read every possible publication on the topic, even those in languages other than English? Are you sure that someone hasn't shown this and maybe just hasn't published it yet? That person could be your reviewer. So when you try to persuade reviewers with this phrase, you might come across as overconfident or that you are overstating your case for novelty, and that erodes your credibility. So unless you are 100% certain that you are the first to show something, avoid this phrase. Instead, rather than tell reviewers the novelty of your work, show them the novelty. How do you do this? Frame a gap and then fill it. Frame a specific need, gap, or problem, and then show reviewers that you addressed the need, filled the gap, or solved the problem. Let's consider an example. We are the first to show that activation of the gene increases proliferation of A549 cells. This phrase sounds confident, but cannot be guaranteed. So a stronger way to phrase this is to frame the knowledge gap and show how you filled it, such as in the following. In this study, we aim to determine whether activation of the gene altered proliferation of A549 cells. We found that activation of the gene increases proliferation of these cells. This phrasing shows reviewers that you filled the knowledge gap, which is inherently novel. Now, what some people will do is combine these two parts with the phrase, "To our knowledge, we are the first to show." Have you seen this phrase used before? Have you used this phrase in your writing? This is the phrase that could be perceived as manipulation. How? Well, you just learned how some authors like to use first to show to try to highlight the novelty of their work. But because they cannot say that with 100% certainty, they will cover themselves by saying "to our knowledge." In other words, they want to claim that they are the first to show something in writing, but because they are not 100% certain they are the first, they will backpedal or hedge by saying "to our knowledge." To me, this is like a police officer pulling you over and asking you if you were speeding, and then you responded with, "To my knowledge, I was going the speed limit." That is not a very convincing statement and does not show confidence or accountability. Or maybe you made dinner for a friend who was allergic to peanuts, and when they asked you if the meal had peanuts in it, you responded with, "To my knowledge, I didn't put peanuts in the meal." Also, not a convincing statement, and, well, could be life-threatening for your friend. And although these metaphors might seem dramatic compared to what you might describe in your writing, eroding your credibility can threaten your reputation and your career and even trust in science. So if you like the phrase, "To our knowledge, we are the first," I want to challenge you to ask yourself why. Are you trying to manipulate reviewers? Have you been manipulated by this phrase and therefore believe it is persuasive? Take a moment to think about it. I'll wait. What thoughts came up? Let me know in the comments. So the question you might be asking yourself now is, if you want to avoid this phrase, what do you do instead? You want to frame a gap and then confidently fill that gap. That confidence is persuasive. Consider the following example. To our knowledge, this study is the first to show that the drug slows plaque formation, reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease. This phrasing claims that the authors are the first to show that the drug slows plaque formation, but then they hedge with the phrase "to our knowledge." This combination erodes confidence and credibility in that statement and in the science. This example would be stronger if the knowledge gap was framed and confidently filled, such as in the following. In this study, we aim to uncover whether the drug slows plaque formation associated with Alzheimer's disease. We found that within only a 12-week course of treatment, the drug slowed plaque formation by 30%, reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease. That phrasing frames the need to uncover whether the drug slows plaque formation associated with Alzheimer's disease. And then it shows reviewers, backed up with data, that the authors found a drug that slows plaque formation. This showing, rather than telling, is much more convincing and persuasive. So now that you know the common phrase that can manipulate reviewers, notice when authors use it in their writing. Notice how that phrase makes you think, feel, and act. Do you find the statement convincing, or do you feel like the authors are trying to manipulate you? The thing is, credibility is crucial to building and maintaining trust in science. And the phrases you use can strengthen or tarnish that credibility and trust. But with some intentionality in your writing and to the phrases you use or omit, you can craft writing that strengthens your credibility and persuades reviewers to support your work, whether they are choosing to accept your manuscript for publication or fund your proposal. And this persuasion extends beyond reviewers to all readers. Because readers, unlike reviewers, are not always a captive audience. They can choose whether to read your paper or cite your paper or otherwise acknowledge and support your work. So be intentional with the phrases you use in your writing. So if you'd like more tips on persuasive writing, you might want to check out my newsletter, The Interlude. Every weekish, I share a short list of curated tips, tools, and resources about scientific and medical writing from me and around the web. I'll add a link to the description box so you can peruse the archive and subscribe if you wish. I'd be delighted to have you. And if you like this video, you might also like this one about one of my favorite books on scientific writing. And if there's something else you'd like to learn more about, let me know in the comments. I create these videos for you, so I want to make sure I'm creating something that you will find valuable. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'm grateful that you shared your valuable time and attention with me today. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next video.